What does the Hulk call his grandmother? Gamma. Welcome to Comic Book Editions Volume 244. I'm really excited that you're here today for the Upgrades video. All 10 of the comic books that I'm going to share today, I've had in my collection. Most of them, probably since I was an original childhood collector, but it was time to upgrade them condition-wise. So that's what I've done. It's a fun trip down memory lane that I'm excited to share with you today, and I'm so happy that you're here. Welcome. If you're new to my channel and haven't subscribed yet, I hope you'll take this opportunity to do so. Giving the video a thumbs up, a like, a heart is a great way to show support. I'm on the road to 1K. We're traveling down that road, and we're going to get there sooner than later. Thank you for your support if you're a returning viewer. At the end of this video, I'll be asking for comments because I love reading those. I want to know if you have any of these comic books in your collection, if you're looking for any of them, any books that you've recently been upgrading. We can dialogue about all of that and more in the comments section below. Without further ado, it's time to get started on the upgrades. So this was the theme that I said I wanted to do for past several months on my channel. I thought this would be fun. You know, from time to time I would show a book in a comic book editions video and I'd say, oh, this is just an upgraded copy. I thought, why not do an entire video of upgrades? The first one is a book that I think is kind of tough to find. At least it was kind of tough for me to find in my price range. It's the Best of DC number 58. This was released in 1985, and it's the Super Juniors Holiday Special. So I personally remember Super Juniors being a little bit more popular at the end of the 1970s, you know, like 78, 79. I know there was wallpaper that had Super Juniors. At the same time that there was wallpaper with regular DC heroes, there was a Super Juniors version. They were like these little vinyl or plastic figures. I mean, all of this was meant for toddlers. I remember those as well. Later on, I would learn that there was lunch boxes. What I didn't know until recently was that Super Juniors were really big in Brazil. And I talked to my friend Andre. Of course, Andre was part of an AOK to me in Comic Book Editions Volume 243 last week that I showed. And he confirmed that information for me. So while in the beginning of the 80s, I don't remember Super Juniors being so big in the US, I guess they still were over in Brazil. I remember picking up this original one on the spinner rack, and it was surprising because I hadn't seen anything Super Juniors in such a long time. I also remember this was the first time I had remembered seeing a Super Juniors that had Wonder Woman with her double W logo. Of course, it was an instant want. Not only do we have a fun cover here, we have a great back cover included as well. As I said, trying to find this book in my price range was a challenge. I've also heard that the print run for this was quite low. My copy was severely damaged and severely beat up. I'm not sure how it got in that condition. I've been watching this for a while, and honestly, it always seems like my comic shop had the best, most fairest price for this title, regardless of what the condition was, and that's where I ended up picking up this copy from. So I thought it was a fun way to kick off this Comic Book Editions Volume 244 video today. At Half Price Books recently, looks like they had gotten a whole bunch of Batman comic books in. And one of those that I needed for an upgrade in my collection was this issue of Detective Comics that came out in 1981. It's issue 503. So Jim Starlin did the cover. And in the previous issue, 502 in the letter column, they had talked about this cover, and they showed it as a little bit of a preview, saying they actually came up, Jim Starlin came up with the concept for this cover first, and then they wrote the entire story around it. So I guess a picture definitely is worth 1,000 words. Gerry Conway was the writer of this story. Don Newton did the interior art. Essentially what this story is dealing with, Batman is shot with a dart, and everyone becomes afraid of him. If he doesn't cure this within 6 days, the effects become permanent. So interesting concept to have everyone so scared. Even Alfred was so scared of Batman too. Of course, Scarecrow, the big bad in this issue as well. Fantastic cover too. I remember buying this as a childhood collector, probably based on the cover and the fact that Batgirl was in the story, because was then and still am now a Batgirl fan. Let's keep up with Batman. The anniversary issue of Brave and the Bold, number 200. So Brave and the Bold comic book celebrated its 70th anniversary of being published last month. And in my back issue of the week, episode 181, I spotlighted a Bronze Age Brave and the Bold comic book with Batman and the Demon. This was the final issue, issue 200 from 1983. Of course, Jim Aparo is the cover artist. Interior artist is Dave Gibbons, and Mike W. Barr is the writer. In addition to us having Batman teaming up with Batman in this story, although they're not really together, it's a Batman story from the Golden Age that ties into a Batman story in the present age. Kind of interloops together, but both Batmans actually aren't together, which is a little bit of a disappointment, but how do you make that work after all? In addition to that story, this is the first Batman and the Outsiders, because they canceled this title to launch Batman and the Outsiders. So we have the first appearance of Halo, Geo-Force, and Katana in the backup story to this. You could tell they were still flushing things out a little bit, because in this story, like, Halo knows Batman's secret identity, but when they got into the actual series, she didn't know that he was Bruce Wayne. Of course, Black Lightning is in here as well, and Metamorpho we're going to be seeing in the upcoming Superman movie. Black Lightning, I just got a bunch of Black Lightning comic books A-OK to me from John's Comics with Kids, and I showed that in Comic Book Editions 241. If you want to see that, I've been reading some of those issues too, and I've really enjoyed them. But really, I haven't met many Bronze Age books that I haven't enjoyed. This next comic book, Signature King will be happy that I'm showing. It's Shazam issue 33. We're at 1978 right now. Kurt Schaffenberger doing the cover. E. Nelson Bridwell is the writer, and Tenny Henson, the interior artist. First Shazam mobile. This, when I look at this, and if I was going through like going through some comic books at a store or whatever, I wouldn't recognize this as one that I had in my collection or needed, because my original copy is coverless, and I actually don't recognize or really remember this cover that much. I did start paging through the issue, and there was a little bit I remembered from the interiors, but still not a whole heck of a lot. The essential story comes down to Mr. Atom is challenging Shazam to a car race in Indianapolis. There's a lot of ties into the Shazam TV series, which was going on at the same time, so the comic book is playing towards that, including the fact that Uncle Dudley has a mustache that was done on purpose to try to make him look more like Mentor from the TV show. The van that they have in there looks like the van on the Shazam TV show. Billy's haircut and the cross-country traveling is all purposely done to reflect what was going on in the TV show in this comic book. I think there's another Shazam that I need as well that's coverless too. So I have that marked in my CLZ. So sometimes when I know the approximate area, it's kind of in the same range too. Like, I think it's in the 30s. So sometimes when I'm going through back issue bins and see Shazam stuff, I pull that up to make sure it is, because looking at the cover alone, I don't think I would remember it. I have a full collection of the Super Friends, but there's many issues that I would like to upgrade my copies of. I've noticed that when, at least for me, regionally where I'm at, I don't know if this is like it where you're at, Super Friends I can find in the wild pretty much anything from issue 20 on down. Anything from like 21 on up seems to be a lot harder to find. This is a 1979 comic book, Super Friends issue 24, the great Ramona Fradon doing the cover and interiors. Denny O'Neill wrote the story for this. It starts out with this pyramid that has the face of Zan and Jaina. And they discover this spaceship that has Exorians in it that look just like Zan and Jaina, because apparently, like, every 2,000 years or something like that, special Exorians are born that all have the same image. So they're distant relatives of Zan and Jaina, but the problem is they're evil. So that's why it looks like it's the real Zan and Jaina entrapping the Super Friends here on this awesome cover, but it isn't. So I've got another Super Friends on order that I'm sure I'll be showing you in several months to come. I have it placed on hold, actually, and I'm waiting for some other stuff before I ship everything out to try to maximize postage the best I can. We'll do one more DC before we get into some Marvel stuff for you. And we'll do Wonder Woman, issue 290, 1982, wonderful Ross Andrew cover. Roy Thomas and Paul Kupperberg are the writers of this, and then Gene Colan is the interior artist. I kind of bought this because I thought it would be awesome if I could get it signed maybe sometime by Roy Thomas. If not me getting the chance to meet him, which would be awesome. If one of my friends is going to a convention or an appearance that he's making and could get signed for me. This is one of my favorite Wonder Woman covers from that era. They had just did a soft reboot on the character about 3 issues prior to that, and that was also with the introduction of the double W, replacing the eagle symbol on her bustier. Of course, I kind of mentioned that earlier when I was showing the Best of DC 58 Digest. So love this cover. It's against the Silver Swan and Captain Wonder. Captain Wonder might look kind of to you like Steve Trevor or very Steve Trevor-ish, but in reality, spoiler, it's Dr. Psycho. And Silver Swans kind of has the thing for Captain Wonder, not knowing that it's really Dr. Psycho. So fun stuff here, a good reread. I kind of remember this comic book cover too when I first saw it, because back then you didn't know what covers were going to look like for the most part, unless they published, like at the end of the letter column where there was a trade house in-house ad showing it. And I thought, ooh, that's a good cover. I like what I'm seeing here. So I'm going to get into some Marvel comic books for you that are upgrades, but first I do want to take a moment to say how excited I was to see that my channel and some features on my channel, like Comic Book Editions and Fanboys Live and the Retro Review, have been submitted for the Comic Book Community Awards, so the CBCAs. They're not finalists yet, and they're still narrowing that down. So I haven't become a finalist, but at least I was thought of enough to get some nominations, and that means the world to me. So thank you so much for letting me know that you're enjoying the content that I'm putting out, because I'm having a great time making the content for you. Okay, I promised some Marvel right now. Marvel Team Up issue 88. We're at 1979. Wonderful Rich Buckler cover. This is a cover I definitely remember. Chris Claremont being the writer on this. Sal Buscema is doing the interior art for this story. So Peter Parker is taking photos at this high society party, and Sue Richards is there. Hank and Janet Pym are there. Alicia Masters calls. Sue takes this call. She finds out that Franklin's been kidnapped. Peter sees this distress on her and decides to follow her to see if there's anything that he can do to help. At this time, Peter's actually working for the Daily Globe because he's been fired from the Bugle. So the panel I remember the most, I definitely remember the cover, but the panel I remember the most from the interior is this one where Sue is walking up the steps, but her dress isn't invisible because it wasn't coated with whatever formula Reed had created, so her clothes would turn invisible if she decided to turn invisible. So it's just this dress walking up this set of stairs. I'll be doing a Fantastic Four comic book edition themed videos, a 2-parter later this month to tie in with the movie, which is coming up pretty soon. And aren't there some cool popcorn buckets for the Fantastic Four movie? I'd love to have that Galactus one, but that is way too expensive. Marvel Team Up issue 97. So we go from 88 to 97. We're now at a year later, 1980. Frank Springer doing the cover for this. Stephen Grant, the writer. Carmine Infantino is our interior artist. It's a New Mexico story with the Hulk arriving, and Jessica Drew is there. She's looking for a smuggling ring that's getting criminals out of the country. She realizes, Hulk's there. She probably thinks that that's something that Spider-Woman would need to get involved with. This issue was published before Spider-Woman issue number 30, but the events take place between Spider-Woman issues 31 and 32. So it was a real tiny prequel. There's not that many Marvel team-ups that don't feature Spider-Man in them. Spider-Man was actually in 140 out of the 150 issues and was in 6 out of 7 annuals. So Hulk was in 3 of the team-ups that Spider-Man wasn't in, and one of the annuals as a headliner. So there's a little behind-the-scenes fact for you. Remember this comic book cover originally seeing it at a grocery store in my hometown. And I'm like, ooh, that's good. And I was and still am a huge Spider-Woman fan. We'll keep it with the Hulk. This is another comic book, Hulk 224 from Volume 1, published in 1978, that I had in my collection, but it was coverless, so I didn't remember the cover at all. Ernie Chan is the artist on the cover. Writer is Roger Stern. Interior artist is Sal Buscema. It has a date stamp on here, which I thought was kind of cool. If you look a little close right here on the H, it has a March 23rd, 1978 date stamp. And I kind of thought, well, that would have been around the time that the TV show was going on. So I thought, I'm going to look online and see what episode would have been the closest to airing around the time that that date stamp ended up on the comic book. And I found out it was the third episode of The Incredible Hulk Season 1 aired the day after. It was called Of Guilt, Models, and Murder. So sometime I'm going to watch that episode specifically because it ties into this comic book that I have in my collection. The story itself, I really didn't have much memory of it. The interior art didn't look familiar. The story didn't really ring any bells for me. It's Hulk and S.H.I.E.L.D. essentially taking on the leader in this story. It's a good cover, though. And one more upgrade for you in this Upgrades edition of Comic Book Editions. 1982 X-Men 158. Bill Seinkiewicz, cover and interior. This is before he was doing that abstract style that he really got known for doing. Of course, Chris Claremont writer. The first time I read this was a few years back on the Omni X-Men show with No Good Comics and John's Comics with Kids. I hadn't reread it since, but I really enjoyed the reread on this. It's Dracula versus Storm. And I think it was the first time it was Dracula versus Storm. It's kind of their introduction to one another. It's also the first time that Nightcrawler's religion was shown. So some good stuff. My copy had a little bit of spine ticks and stuff, which is easy to get on here, especially with this black border, which is kind of why I wanted to upgrade it. And I'm happy that I finally got the chance to do this. I am 3 issues away from having a consecutive run of X-Men from issues 99 through 220. 3 issues away! That's something that I hope I can change and reduce down, if not eliminate completely, sooner than later. As a matter of fact, I'm hoping maybe next month at some point I'll have a little bit of an update or enough X-Men stuff put together that I can kind of do an X-Men themed video. I'd really like to do that in the future here on my channel. So those are my upgrades for this time around. I will tell you that I have a Superman comic book. It's actually an Action Comics with Superman that I upgraded as well. I'm going to be showing that because in addition to doing a 2-part Fantastic Four comic book editions video later this month, I'm doing a 2-part Superman comic book editions video to tie in with that movie. And the first part of that 2 parts is going to start next week, next Tuesday. And I hope you saw my Super Stream this past Friday, the live stream with Super Russ 9000, with Mr. Gretzky 9966, and Tim the Comic Collector. It was nice to reunite and have some fun talking about some of our favorite things to do with Superman and our excitement for the upcoming movie. I also am really looking forward to the movie. I've already got my IMAX movie premiere event tickets for it. So I'm going to see it in IMAX the very first time. I'll be doing that next Thursday. And also next week, we'll have a Superman themed back issue of the week. And there'll be some Superman content for sure on my Instagram too. Speaking of my back issue of the week, it's 4th of July themed, since that's almost upon us. It's coming up this Friday. And I chose a Marvel Age comic book, which essentially is a fanzine, but it has a great G.I. Joe American flag cover. I wanted something really patriotic to use for 4th of July. So that YouTube short for the back issue of the week, 183, is already on my channel. Check it out if you haven't had the opportunity to do so yet. That brings us to the end of this Comic Book Editions video today. What did you think? I told you I was going to ask for your comments. Let me know. If you're looking for any of these books, if you have any of these books in your collection, what books you need to upgrade that are in your collections or ones that you recently have. We can dialogue and discuss all of the stuff related to Comic Book Editions 244 in the comments section. I hope you have a wonderful, happy, healthy, successful week. See you on Fanboys Live and the Retro Review coming up this weekend. And Silver Hair Bronze Age Babe will be back with Signature King Tony Fett and myself, and we're going to do something Superman related too, because there's a lot of excitement for that movie. And Shabab picked out a good one. So I'll see you there, and I'll catch you with other content on my channel as well soon. Take care.